r/AskReddit created by routinereddit. Serious. Teachers of Reddit. What is the surprisingly smartest thing your stupidest student has ever said? When I was teaching grade 5 a few years back, I had a student who really struggled academically and misbehaved a lot. During one of his punishments, which was washing dishes with me from our morning breakfast time, I straight up asked him why he kept getting into trouble. The boy admitting that he just knew that if he misbehaved he would get to spend time with me 1:1 and we would talk about life and his hobbies and such. I found out later on that his father had been incarcerated for pretty much the entirety of the boy's life. So, the stupidest and most misbehaved kid in the class was actually just playing the system the whole time and really just needed a positive male role model in his life. After that, I told him he didn't need to act up in order to spend time with me. He could just ask for extra responsibility and I would give it to him. He was, mostly, better behaved after that. I miss him a lot. Teachers like you are the ones that make a difference. And as a thank you, we'd like to cut your pay. Keep up the good work. How about just don't give them a raise, not even to keep up with inflation. Also, we are doubling his assignments and he will have to cover for Ms. Cooper, who was fired earlier this week. Thank you for being that guy. I grew up with a rotating door of abusive male role models, and the teachers who found that responsibility in their laps are the only reason I made it. I made sure to tell them that. I hope your kid does the same someday. Freaking good job, mate. Keep it up. That's wholesome as heck. Dude, you're a good guy. I'm teaching English as a foreign language, and one of my students hasn't been attending for a year. When he finally came, I gave him an essay to write. He wrote it in perfect German because he thought that we were studying German. The guy had been learning German all year long only to learn that we were studying English. This is both the smartest and the stupidest thing I can imagine. He's a little confused, but he got the spirit. Did he fail the class? He didn't. I gave him a C because if he managed to learn German on such a good level in a year, he would have no problems learning English. Or you're tricked, and he was raised bilingual because of his German grandparents. This was his plan all along. I had a Puerto Rican roommate in college who took introductory Spanish for credit because he grew up speaking English at home. Let's just say he must have had a really good professor because he learned it very fast. I had a bunch of people like that when I took intro Russian. The professor must have been even better, seeing as they learned even faster than he taught. I needed to fulfill a foreign language requirement for my BO degree. My very Russian name obviously wasn't enough of a giveaway. Went to high school with a dashing young man named Vladimir. He had been raised here in the USA and spoke perfect English with hardly an accent. Told the teachers that H spoke English at home, but had an interest in learning Russian. He passed the class as a star student. Only when his parents came to graduation speaking no English at all did, but seeming to understand it effortless, did everyone realize he spoke only English at home. But his parents and grandparents who also lived there spoke only Russian, lol. That's pretty standard. The idea is that if you only speak the foreign language at home, your kid has a chance of retaining a decent amount of it. I grew up speaking only Russian until I was 6. By the time I was 7, English was my main language and Russian was quickly slipping. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe for daily Reddit videos. I don't know if this counts, but I was teaching a public speaking class. It was mostly 9th grade. They were all nervous about their first big speech, and I tried to ease their nerves by saying, "I promise giving a speech won't kill you." Then, some kid shouted, "Do you know how many people in history have died while giving a speech?" I mean, he had a point. Probably my favorite answer in the thread. Yeah. I couldn't even talk for probably 5 minutes. I just smiled, nodded, and let out a chuckle. I think said something like, "Not in my classroom." I probably shouldn't say that with all the school shooting crap going on in the US. My favorite student of all time in my 9 years of teaching was a kid named Logan. Logan was this giant kid, tall as I was, 5 feet 2, in the 5th grade, and massive. Logan also had an information processing learning disability. He processed information more slowly than most people. He spoke very slowly and deliberately with long pauses, and just saw the world differently. Logan had learned early on that if he played dumb, people would treat him like he was stupid and do his work for him. He had this look he would put on his face, mouth agape, lower lip hanging down, legit drooling, eyes unfocused, and he would refuse to speak to you. I figured that out really quickly, and after 2 times of me making him talk to me at recess, when he refused in class, he didn't pull that look with me anymore. It was a complete facade. Anyway, because of how Logan processed the world, he would spend his recess slowly walking the grounds and picking up anything interesting he found. He found things no one else would find: coins, sequins, a box of sewing machine spools, etc. And he'd bring them to us teachers if he didn't know what they were or just wanted to share them with us. So one day at recess he comes up to me and the other teacher at recess duty with me, and he's holding a condom wrapper. He asks us what it is, and the other teacher quickly says, "Oh Logan, that's just a candy wrapper for grown-ups. Here, let me take that," and throw it away. And Logan dead but looks us in the face and says, "Oh good. I thought it was a condom, and those shouldn't be out here on the playground." And then he turned and ambled off. His emotional intelligence was incredibly high. I had a student with autism in class, Tyler. Tiny little guy, super sweet, but would have occasional severe meltdowns. I will always have the image in my head of tiny little Tyler mid-meltdown, swinging his arms at giant Logan and screaming, while Logan simply stood there and took it and gently patted him on the head. TL, Doctor, I don't care if it's too long and no one reads it. Logan was one of the best people I've ever met in my life, and I have so many good memories of him. My sides. Classic Logan. In a college music history class, we were discussing the differences in sound between a harpsichord from the high baroque and today's grand piano. One student, who normally contributed little, said, "The reason the two instruments sound so different is because harpsichord strings are plucked by quills, whereas piano strings are struck by hammers, and you'd make different sounds too if plucked or struck." That is exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you for your contribution. It's a harp. Liar. No, it really is. I appreciate this. How dare you call me a liar? I had no idea harpsichord strings were plucked by quills. Yep, they're like mechanical harps, whereas pianos are mechanical dulcimers. Well crap, it's right there in the name. Yeah, dulcimer piano. Anyone with a brain could see that. I teach first grade, so many not as dramatic as other replies. I had a kid who was kind of never quite paying attentions. We read a dinosaur book, and we're answering very basic first grade questions in the back of the book. It literally had a brachiosaurus and said, "The dinosaur's legs are A. long, B. short." He pretty much got stuck here, and didn't move on. To me, it was the easiest question in the book, but some of the students are low-level English learners, so it is possible he just couldn't understand the words long or short. After like 7 minutes of doing my rounds and assisting other students, I came back to him. He had written in C, long and short are both opinion words. Makes sense to me. Long or short compared to what? Like, let's say you've got a guy with 2-foot long legs. Those are some pretty short legs. But let's say the same guy is only 3 feet tall. Those legs suddenly seem pretty darn long. Are bananas long or short? I was gonna think about it, but I just choose to not go down this rabbit hole. I remember backquote circumference because it sounds like backquote circumcised. This is actually how my 10th grade geometry teacher told us to remember. Edit. So far this post has made my karma go up by nearly 5x what it was before this post. Thanks for the upvotes. Really, not because it has the same root as circle. Feels like extra steps to me. She was a weird teacher, but her class was fun. Elementary school. I worked in the school admin office for a while. We had a cop come in to speak to the kids, basically to warn them on the dangers of strangers and random people speaking to them in the street. The cop was great and told the kids how they should always be careful and that some bad men might take them away from their mummies and daddies. One kid puts his hand up and asks the question, "So what will happen if we go with one of these stranger men?" The cop wasn't prepared for that question and just said how sad it would be and how his parents would miss him. A few days later a new buzzword was going around the school which phonetically sounded like pedophile. The kid had looked up online or spoke to someone and then told the other kids in schools about what pedophiles do. It scared the heck out of some of the kids and the principal had to come to each class to calm the kids down. That kid probably did more to make sure no one left the school with a stranger than the cops. What's sad is they never said why, nor did they explain that it's bad for family to do too, since abuse, sexual or otherwise, is much more likely from family than the rando on the street. Yeah, I have no idea how the school would even try to explain that to kids. You can't just say you can't even leave with family, because statistically you're more likely to be abused by them than strangers. More likely they'd say you can only leave with family if you have school office permission. I've told my 4-year-old in basic details what a bad person would do to them, since he asked. There are ways of providing high-level, kid-friendly detail without providing it in complete depth.